In signing this treaty of peace with the Free Worlds League, we bring to a close the last tragic act of our late brother, whose name shall not be mentioned. But I wish it understood by all that in signing this peace, I have forfeited none of your rights, none of your children's rights, none of our national honor. In my heart, I firmly believe that a day will come when the gold and green of the Capellan standard will wave once and for all over the gold skies and green fields of Endurian. We have not forgotten our brethren. We merely acknowledge the day of their deliverance is not yet at hand. The art of war has changed, and we must change with it. Inevitably, though, we will learn the lessons of our enemies, and in time, use their knowledge against them. Accept you, therefore, this peace of mine in your hearts as I have accepted it on paper. A final reckoning will come, and in that hour it shall be we Capellans who will dictate to our enemies the final peace of Endurian.
Why not? All we have to lose is national honor. After what happened to his brother Hendrik at the hands of his own son, Raxel and his wife swiftly sent their daughter, Micah Gabrielau, out of the Confederation to New Avalon. Micah, Calvin's sister, spent most of her adult life there and eventually married a minor Davion industrialist. Together they had a daughter. Content with her life on New Avalon, Micah had no plans to return. However, following her brother's death, she was summoned to assume the chancellorship, a role she reluctantly accepted. Her husband chose to remain in the Federated Sons, but her daughter, Celicia, accompanied her. Upon taking office, Micah prioritized ending the ongoing war with the Free Worlds League over Endurian. Hendrik Lau's previous mismanagement of Terran Capellan relations had caused Terra to favor the Free Worlds League, granting them access to advanced Terran technology through trade agreements. This technological advantage became painfully evident on the battlefields of Endurian, where Capellan forces were routinely outmatched by the Free World League counterparts. In the summer of 2531, Micah signed a treaty, officially ceding the Endurian assault systems to the Free Worlds League. The agreement also required the Confederation to pay a substantial indemnity. The following decade passed without any major developments, and Micah eventually died while still serving as Chancellor. Her official cause of death was listed as food poisoning. Celicia, her daughter, who has to be said never felt a strong bond of affection towards her mother, succeeded as Chancellor.
Sir Samuel, you asked me to reconsider my decision. You reconsider it. And when you do, consider Terrell Davion as well. Do you know he has a wart at the end of his nose? How can any of you expect me to marry someone with a wart at the end of his nose? Maybe if he wore a helmet and a faceplate, I could stomach kissing him in public. But beyond that, you must be joking. Don't tell me about reasons of state. Keeping down my lunch without a dedicated effort is the best reason of state I know to stay as far away as possible from the arrogant popinjay.
Celicia continued where her mother had left off. She maintained the peace that the Confederation was enjoying at the time, but simultaneously increased the size of the CCAF's MAC regiments to 53, with all forces strategically aimed at the Free Worlds League. She honored her heritage and never forgot the treatment her mother endured during exile, and under Celicia's leadership, the Capellan Confederation and the Federated Sons shared the closest relationship they had ever experienced, one that will remain unmatched even in the far future. Celicia opened the borders between the two nations, encouraging the exchange of people and ideas. This openness allowed her to occasionally visit her father. By the 2540s, numerous trade agreements were signed. One secret agreement created Capellan radioactives for Davion mech designs. Later in the same decade, the two nations signed the Battle Accords, pledging never to use atomic weapons. The peak of this unprecedented relationship came when Terrell Davion proposed a marriage between himself and Celicia. This union would have combined two great houses and formed a single entity. the Davion Confederation. Such a union would have created the strongest power in the region, one capable of rivaling Terra itself. For many previous Laos, this was a long-held dream, a vision of earning the recognition they had always sought. This also allowed the Confederation to focus their entire might against the Free Worlds League to reclaim lost territories. Silesia's response to Terra's proposal, verbatim, was, "Thank you, but no thank you." Speculation about her refusal ran rampant. Some believed that the turbulent history between the two houses was an obstacle too great to overcome. Others thought the proposal was insincere, a strategic ploy to intimidate House Kurita and House Marek. Still, others felt it was simply unrealistic to unite the vastly different peoples of the two nations. The truth, however, was far simpler. Silesia found Terrell immensely unappealing. After this rejection, the relationship between the Confederation and the Federate Sons never again reached such heights. Terrell eventually joined a mercenary company and was killed in combat in 2550. The following year, Silesia succumbed to stomach cancer. The successor of Silesia was Terence Lau, Kelvin's son. Terence was eager to begin his rule, determined to prove that the son of the Mad Chancellor could be just as capable and effective as the two women who preceded him. He aspired to earn the same respect his most illustrious ancestors had enjoyed. However, what mattered most to him was securing the friendship and goodwill of Terra, particularly its scientists. To Terence, achieving these ambitions seemed straightforward. In 2551, he took his first bold step, the Third Endurian War. 5 years later, the Capellans once again found themselves completely outmatched, much like during the Second War. Recognizing the escalating chaos, the 13th Director General of the Terran Hegemony, Ian Cameron, intervened. He demanded a ceasefire between the warring nations. Cameron envisioned transforming the hegemony into a peacekeeping force and a unifier of worlds. He approached Terence Lau with a proposal: a favored nation trade agreement, access to advanced military technologies, and financial subsidies. In return, Terence will allow Cameron to mediate the conflict and agree to integrate the Capellan Confederation into the proposed Star League. It was an offer Terence could not refuse. He traveled to Terra to finalize the negotiations. When he returned, he brought with him more than a peace treaty. He secured several substantial drafts on Terran banks to replenish the Capellan treasury and enrich himself, a provisional agreement linking the Confederation to the emerging Star League, the price endurance system itself, and, most notably, a bride, Victoria Matthews. We were awakened in the middle of the night by the most hideous of screams, the likes of which I never hope to hear again. This sound, somewhere between the wail of a banshee and the howl of an angry rock cat, echoed through the chancellery halls over and over again, rising in intensity, sufficient to wake any dead bold enough to peep out of their guilt coffins in the basement at this new evil loosed upon the earth. As we neared the Chancellor's room, the sound of angry disputation could be heard. Several of the lancers stood by in confusion, uncertain what to do next. Suddenly, the doors of the Chancellor's quarters flew back, and through them, his head covered in nail polish, his eyes white with fear, came our august leader, running for his life from Lady Lau, the scepter of the Capellan Confederation in her upraised hand, yelling a variety of Terran oaths, the like of which would make a trooper blush to recite. Giving the newlyweds sufficient room to maneuver, we backed off and watched for the better part of an hour while Her Majesty chased His Majesty through the hallowed halls of government, their progress marked by the sound of breaking glass and the smashing of expensive statuary. I am pleased to report that after Her Majesty managed to score a sufficient number of blows about his person, our leader managed to escape through the nimble use of his imagination and dexterity. To wit, he slid down the stair rail, gaining enough of a lead to make his way to the safety of a locked closet on the floor below. Reinforcement later arrived, and the threat of regicide was narrowly averted. Terrence had essentially achieved what he set out to do. Terran trade and scientific advancements were flowing into the Confederation. He had secured a permanent seat on the Terran League Council for himself and future chancellors, and he had ensured the Confederation's recognized autonomy in internal affairs. Additionally, he has solidified his position as the sole legal representative of the Capellan Confederation. By all accounts, Terrence should have been happy and content with his accomplishments. Unfortunately for him, he was married to Victoria Matthews. Victoria was ambitious. Based on what can be found, her primary reason for marrying Terrence was to gain wealth and power. However, reality struck when she arrived on Sion and discovered that being the spouse of the Chancellor brought her neither. By Terrence's time, the role had been reduced to an honorary title, stripped of meaningful authority since the days of his father. Faced with this harsh reality, Victoria's demeanor changed, or perhaps she revealed her true nature. Terrence's love for her was genuine, making her transformation all the more painful for him. The sudden shift in her behavior caught him completely off guard. Victoria, however, could count herself lucky that Terrence bore little resemblance to his infamous father. During one argument, she chased him with a scepter, forcing him to flee. Even after tempers cooled, there were no lasting consequences for her actions, and Victoria seemingly faced no repercussions. Terrence's final act as Chancellor was the formal signing of the Capellan Confederation into the Star League. He passed away on April 14th, 2571, leaving his daughter, Ursula Lau, as his successor.